Hello everyone and welcome to this channel, Talitha Coom. My name is Patricia, and if you enjoy this video, please consider subscribing and also checking out my Instagram at Talitha Coom Ministry for more content. Red flags. We have all heard this term, especially in regard to romantic relationships. However, too often for women and men too, but I'm referring to women right now, we either just don't see them or flat out try to justify them, even if subconsciously. And this has led to so much hurt for sweet friends of mine, for I'm sure many of you ladies watching, and for myself as well. I want to tell you right now, before I get into the crux of everything, that if you have dealt with this before, you are not stupid, okay? You're not. I told myself for years that I was such an idiot for seeing these things wrong in a relationship of mine and blatantly ignoring them till things got real bad. But the truth was, in my situation anyway, there were some very real emotional and mental abuses and manipulation going on that caused me to be blinded to many of these truths, or rather afraid to approach them. Naturally, years after the fact, these red flags are quite obvious, though frankly, several of the issues I faced were traits that were not necessarily taught to recognize. Some of you unfortunately may know what I'm talking about. In today's video, I want to discuss how to make a list of red flags for yourself to be aware of when it comes to dating. This is not to make you paranoid, not to make you judgmental, not to make you feel dumb, but just to make you aware of these boundaries you should have in respect to yourself. Certain boundaries that might be universal or specific to you. First of all, why even make an actual physical list? It kind of sounds silly from the get-go. However, I will tell you, a friend of mine, following some painful experiences I had, suggested that in addition to making a list of green flags, things that I need in a future husband, which let me know if you would like a video on that as well, that I also make a red flags list so that I could kind of process everything, put it into a physical list so that I was far more aware of these boundaries and I had actually taken the time to work through them. In fact, more women than you realize might actually have a list such as this. It truly can be helpful if you are experiencing serious doubts and this gut feeling that is telling you that this guy you are dating, something's up. Or it could be the reverse, where you're having a really great experience with a guy and you feel that you are close to possible engagement and thus marriage, and you want to check this list to be able to say, wow, he literally doesn't do any of these harmful, unhealthy things. Especially because if you are anything like me, you have a bad habit of, when things are going really well, questioning literally everything. Sometimes I wonder if God's just looking at me like, girl, I'm literally giving you everything you prayed for and fulfilling your deepest, purest desires. Why are you questioning me? But he knows why. He knows me. He knows how I am, and he's quite patient with me. That much is obvious. Adding on to that previous reason of just, it's good to have, going off of what I experienced, you may have incurred some horrible, tragic experience that you really just don't want to relive any aspect of it ever again, and therefore putting everything in a physical list can help you really stand up for yourself because you know those boundaries, you know what you are not willing to compromise, and you have an actual list, and it might help you to stand firm a little bit better. And thus you can draw from this list to avoid what you have experienced previously. Because, and I want to make this clear, your future husband, the man that you will give your entire self to, the man that you will commit your entire life to, is worth scrutinizing over. You are better off single, because that is not a bad thing, than committed to a man who does not respect you, nor does he care for you the way he ought. I'm about to get to the list, but before we do, I just want to say real quick, if you notice something wrong in your relationship, seriously wrong, please don't let yourself justify it by saying, I can fix him, I can help him, I can be good for him. Your job in a romantic relationship is not to be his crutch, his therapist, nor his mother. It is a partnership. You help each other and lean on each other every now and again, but you should not have to fully rely on one another. You should be able to stand on your own, and yay, it's better because you're together and you're two fully formed humans, if that makes sense. Getting to the actual list, what kind of things go on it anyway? Let's be clear, this is not to make us petty and put things like, if he doesn't have the same favorite movie as me, we can't date. If he has a bad singing voice, he's not the one. If he doesn't have a devotion to St. Joseph, it's not happening. It's not supposed to be a list of things you'd prefer a guy did or didn't do. It's a list of things that when you read it, you go, ooh, that's not healthy and not something I want to be committed to. Everyone has their faults, but there's a difference between he forgets to clean his hair out of the sink after shaving and being borderline abusive. Massive difference. Most of what I'm going to throw out here is pretty universal for all women, but there will be a few that are pretty specific to women of faith. But I do want this to be more so aimed towards all women. For universal lists, I would throw out things such as not supportive of your career, unkind to your family and friends, or speaks ill of those you love, constantly blames others for his issues, nothing is ever his fault, woe is me, alcoholic, addicted to drugs, dismissive of your needs, especially emotional, mocks your appearance, ever, is disrespectful of his mother regardless of their relationship, even if it is strained. I'm telling you, even if it's a bad relationship, maybe he didn't really know her, be aware of how he talks about her. Is he harboring a lot of grudge and pain, I guess? I'm telling you, I went through the same thing with my own father, but that's an entirely separate video that I could go into if you want clarification on what I mean. He can be respectful in how he talks to her, even if, probably should keep his distance from her, if that makes sense. Bad or reckless with finances. Often isolates you from those you love because he just really needs alone time with you. Emphasis on often. It's okay to be alone with him, but if it's all the time and he never lets you be with your friends or family, that might be a problem. Watches or really has anything to do with porn in any way, shape, or form. And if you want more scientific and psychological reasoning on why this is such a serious red flag, check out the site fightthenewdrug.org. And yes, that one applies to all women, not just religious women. Pushes clear boundaries you've set in place. Seems to have an issue keeping up with friendships and family relationships. Isn't really close to anyone. No one really knows him that well, especially if this is in tangent with the woe is me, everything is everyone else's fault. Makes hanging out with other girls that are friends of his a priority over you. I have plenty of guy friends and I love them to death, love hanging out with them, but it's wrong for me to put them as a priority over the guy that I am dating or am married to. It's okay for him to hang out with those friends that are girls, but if he's making them a priority, time to start asking some questions. Dependent on his mother or you or his sister, what have you, any other woman for basic needs. Resorts to leaving, stomping out of a room, and or yelling when you guys have a disagreement. Now that was just a handful of ideas that you could put on your own personal red flags list. Some of those were probably obvious, while others, such as isolating you or blaming others for his issues, you may not have necessarily heard of before. Now, speaking as a woman of faith, though I do believe some of these could still apply across the board, I would also add some of these. Uses swear words a lot. Not good with children or just flat out doesn't like them. Does not actively follow Christ. Now, trust me, I've heard the success stories. That's beautiful, that's great, but why would you put an issue of morality on top of disagreements you're inevitably going to have? You're going to have disagreements and arguments about something. Why would you make something as big as that? Why would you allow that? That doesn't make any sense. Don't add that to everything. No matter how much you love him, you need to be in agreement on basic morals. So even if you're not a woman of faith, make sure you agree on basic terms of morality. That's such a big deal. That is not something you want to be fighting about with your team member and partner in life. Now, all of this said, you might be wondering, what's on my list? Well, I'm not going to read you the entire thing, as a lot of it I did list, but there were quite a few things that I put out there that I don't actually have on my list because they're just obvious things that I'm not worried about not saying, like addicted to drugs. That's never going to be an issue of, oh, am I going to try and justify that? Whereas there are other things that I might not notice, that I might not think to be aware of or weren't aware of in the past. As you can see, I have these two lists here. This one's a little bit thicker. This is my green flags list. This is my red flags list. And I keep them both in the cheesiest part of my Bible, 1 Corinthians 13. You know, that part about love is patient, love is kind, it does not boast, it's not proud, all that stuff. So I'll read you a few of the things that are on my personal list, just to give you an idea of what it means to have things that maybe all women should consider, but also, that might be specific to you. So some things I have on my list that I did not previously mention: possessive, impatient, enjoys getting tipsy or drunk, not supportive of theater. This is an example of something that is specific to me. I have my BA in theater. So naturally, if I come across a guy, I start dating him, and he thinks theater is stupid, it's a waste of time, he doesn't get it, it's just dumb, doesn't understand the philosophy and the beauty and the godliness that can come behind it, yeah, that might be an issue when I literally spent 4 years studying it and made a career out of it. So that's just an example of something that would be specific to me. Another one that might be specific to me is if my mom doesn't like him. Now you have to understand, my mom and I are extremely similar in a good way. She and I have never fought. I don't know what it is. We have never fought. Even in my teen years, I just never saw the point. I'm very averse to conflict. And I also just trusted her. And anything I didn't agree with, I always ended up later in life going, oh, I understand why she did that now. I get it. And while I will never just outright take her word as gospel, oh, you don't like him, okay, I'm gonna dump him, and she wouldn't suggest that anyway, if she has an issue with a guy that I'm dating, I'm gonna ask respectfully, okay, why do you think that, Mom? What's the problem? Can we discuss that? Because there might be things that she doesn't know. I might be like, oh, we've actually already discussed that. Here's what he said. You know, it could be, I just happen to know him better than her, but I am going to be respectful of that. And I do trust her judgment because she has been herself through a lot. And I know she doesn't want me to fall into the same pit she did. Everything's good now, but, you know, and I trust her. I really do. So again, I'm not going to be taking my mom's word as gospel, but if she doesn't like a guy, that's something I need to be aware of and ask her why she feels that way. Interrupts me frequently. I am a quality time person, and when people interrupt me or I'm not able to get what I need to say or just want to say in, it makes me feel devalued and like my thoughts don't matter. So that's why I have that on there. So those were just several examples of things that are on my list that might not be on everyone's. Some of those you might think, well, yeah, obviously being possessive is a really disgusting thing, but that's something I had to write down myself because of a past experience to make myself aware, like, ooh, what are signs of someone being possessive? I don't want to go through that again, you know, whereas you might not ever need to write that down. It really depends. So what is the takeaway from all of this? Red flags are called such because they are a warning sign to stop and possibly get away from a specific situation or person. Think of a stoplight. Green means go. Red means stop. That doesn't mean you won't eventually keep going, but with a red flag, that's a warning sign like, hey, stop. You need to look at this. You need to start asking questions. It might turn out that it's not what you thought, but you need to be aware. Not because you're hateful, prude, judgmental, or mean, but because you are aware of things that might be detrimental to yourself. Sure, don't be paranoid, but making a list of red flags you should be aware of in dating might just help you to stand firm and stand your ground so you don't fall victim to terrible hurt. You can't avoid everything, but it's a start. If your gut is telling you something is off, check this list. Make the list in the first place. Don't make excuses. Be honest and be willing to communicate. That's key. And if you're afraid to communicate because you're afraid of the reaction, that in itself might be a red flag, but you still got to try it. Especially because if you're anything like me, sometimes you're afraid to communicate something and then you go to do it and realize it wasn't a big deal on your part or they didn't react bad at all and they were completely understanding. And that might actually be, a green flag. Wow, they're great at communication and understanding. How cool. So those are just my thoughts on the matter. But now I want to ask, do any of you out there already have your own list of red flags? I would love for you to tell me in the comment section below, for not just for myself, but other women. Hey, these are things you didn't mention in the video that I actually have on my list of red flags. I would love to read them, and I'm sure other women would as well, so be sure to put those down below. Let me know if you're going to consider making a red flags list for yourself. Again, it's not to make you paranoid, it's just to make you process everything and put it in physical form so it's just a little bit more organized. Either way, I really hope you did get something out of today's video. Again, please consider subscribing to the channel, and if you want, following it over on Instagram at Talitha Coombe Ministry for more content. But that does it for this video. Thank you so much for watching, and God bless.